Earnestly podcast coming to you on April 5th, 2021. What is up? Hope you guys enjoyed your Easter. I mean, my weekend was kind of full. And not just because of Easter, of course. I do acknowledge Easter, celebrate Easter, all that. But this weekend was, like I said last week on the pod, because this week is the week in my family where it's the most hectic. Birthdays, anniversary, all that. My wife and I, we just celebrated our 10th year of wedded Bliss. By the way, before we get started, if you're watching this on the YouTube, okay, so if you, by any chance, subscribe to the Take 3 Wrestling Podcast, that I do my wrestling podcast, you notice I had a little bit of a green screen back there. The reason I had a green screen is that I do my shows with guests mostly through Skype. Skype's backdrop feature is pretty dope. It's really cool, very clean. The problem is you only use it really when you have a guest. So if I'm doing a solo show, well, you can't really do anything about that, unfortunately. So I got tired of looking at my white walls on a solo show. I want to keep doing video because I love doing video. So I decided to go a little ghetto. Put a couple t-shirts behind me. Miami Heat, to my two favorite teams. Two of my favorite teams, should I say. In sports, you got the Miami Heat in basketball, of course, who won 5 in a row, by the way. And the New York Mets, who finally, after a couple of days, because of the Washington Nationals and not being able to control COVID, opening up the season today. We'll touch on that in a second. That's part of the list of things to talk about. As I said a little while ago, and before we get started, this podcast you can find on all podcast catchers. Such as Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Stitcher Radio, Amazon Music. Missing anything else? Google Podcasts. Yeah. And, of course, YouTube. And, of course, Earnestly Media on all the social media platforms such as YouTube and Facebook and Instagram and Twitter and all that good stuff. But, yeah. So, this past Saturday, the wife and I, we celebrated our 10-year wedding anniversary. I can't believe we've gone 10 years already being together. Well, not together, but as a couple. We actually hit 15 this July 4th. I didn't forget this, this kind of and honestly, like we were, if COVID wasn't a thing, obviously we probably did a little more. But with the coronavirus, obviously, we're getting sea light in the tunnel. More people getting vaccinated, which is good. I'm very excited to hear that and see that. We're not sure when we're getting vaccinated. Honestly, we're gonna get vaccinated at some point, probably, but I don't know when. We honestly we didn't do anything. We worked. Wife and I, we went to work, and then I think the only notable thing we did on anniversary was we got food from one of our favorite Asian cuisines. She got her sushi, of course, her favorite meal in the whole world. I got my the same place I got my teriyaki salmon with white rice and some veggies, and that's about it. Really, we watched Fresh Prince and binged a couple of shows we're watching, and same old. I mean, I know it's boring and lazy, but we didn't do much. We didn't really do much. Some might think it's disappointing. I get it, but we're a pretty simple couple. We find a lot of our pleasure in spending time with each other. We don't need to always spend money on things and buy jewelry. We've never been that kind of couple. She's never into that. She's not into flowers either. She's more into sentimental things. She's more into a written note or a card and all that, something of that nature. So, it's very simple. Very I don't say this as an insult because it's not, because it's something I think you really appreciate. But when it comes to that kind of thing, she's low maintenance. She's into simplicity. And it took me a long time. It took me a long time to get used to that. But I was thinking about the 10 years being together, and I was looking back at our wedding. It was a equally fun but equally stressful time for us when we got married in 2011. It's a lot of things I went through personally at the time also. Planning a wedding with family, that couldn't be here. Her late father, couldn't come to, who wasn't able to be at the wedding because she was disabled in California, wasn't able to be here. And as a result, because of that, we decided to make the wedding itself. Some of you guys may not know this, but when we got married, we made the wedding private. It was just us two, our pastor, or her youth pastor at the time. At the time when she, who was now a pastor, of course, his wife, who did the violin for us, and then photographer and videographer. That's it. And which a lot of people in my family didn't like that. They were not understanding to why we went that route. But her father was her world, and her father couldn't be there. Then really, what is it? And I get that. So it was a decision that was tough, for all of us, but I respected it. I supported her with it, and obviously there was a lot of hurt feelings at the time when we did it, but hey, this is not about them, it's about us. If you don't like it, too bad. I mean, I guess all I could say, but we've gone through a lot in 10 years. Marriage is not easy. One thing I've learned, as myself, I get to my 40s now, and I'm starting to raise 2 kids, and and adding all these things in my life, and marriage is not easy. It's not something you just do. And I think one of the things I'm proud of most about our marriage and about our union is that with all the challenges that we face, and it's not easy. People say we were a great fit, and I agree. I think we're a really, really good fit. But it's not easy. And I think one of the things I've come to appreciate even more as I got older is that her and I, while it may be tough at times, we still do fight for our marriage. We still do fight to make it work. We know that if one of us decided to call it quits, whatever, which God forbid it happens ever, we know that we gave it a puncher's chance, and that's something that you can be proud of. I know her and I are proud of that, and we take a lot of pride in our family, our little family here, our 2 boys and all that. We take a lot of pride in our little circle. You know what I mean? And it's been a very, very adventurous 10 years. I'm trying to be honest here. Like, we've had some high points, obviously, some real low points, challenging points, very happy points. It's like I said, it's a marriage is a labor of love. It really is. And if you're in it for the long haul, you need to be in it to win it 100%. And, it's one of those. But having 10 years with my wife, Lauren, love you very much, of course. I was hoping to get her on the podcast last week to do this, but time constraints and a lot going on here at home. Those just couldn't work out. But, cheers, 10 years and many, many more, hopefully, God willing, Also, in addition to our anniversary this past Saturday, our youngest son, Logan, turned 4 years old yesterday. Now, all our time went to that. Because of schedules, of course, because as you know, both our kids are born the same week. My son Logan's on the 4th. My oldest son Eli's on the 8th. Because of the schedules, and what we were able to work out in terms of taking time off, all that. Most certainly my wife. We pretty much lumped the 2 birthdays into one. So we just had the boys. We went to the Science Museum with the boys in West Palm Beach on Sunday. It was a lot of fun. We saw the fishes and a couple of cool things there. Went to the playground there, and then we went to the splash pad where they had a lot of fun in the water and all that. Came back home, opened some gifts, and then we went to my mother's house, their grandmother's house, and we had pizza and cake, and they opened more gifts from grandma and whatnot. It was a couple hours there. I had a good time. Came home all tired, went to sleep. Boom, done. It was a fairly, I would say, it was a very successful adventurous day on a low key factor. But like I said, I think I've said this before on this podcast about some of the Christmases and holidays we've spent here at home, Thanksgiving and whatnot. As I've become older, and I come from a very big family, I've learned to appreciate these smaller family events. I'm so used to the big ones, and don't get me wrong, I love the big ones. I love all the big events, my cousins and my brothers, sisters, all that, you name it. But these small ones just have enough value as well too. And sometimes you sort of relax in your own environment and be able to just relax and take in everything in. So yeah, it was kind of a low key affair. We initially were going to plan a pool party for the boys. Then we realized we had family members who couldn't make it last minute because of other plans being made before. But then again, we had planned this a week before, last weekend. So it was kind of hard to figure it out. It was like, and I told the wife, well, let's just cancel it and let's just do what we do, and that's it. And which worked out great. Told my oldest son Eli for next year, like, you have 3 choices next year. We can do a big party at a pavilion with a bounce house, invite entire families, friends, you name it. You can go to Disney World, or you can do Legoland. So far, Legoland's in the lead. We'll see how that plays out next year. Obviously, I hope he picks a party, though. To be honest with you, because I like to have like a nice gathering with my family. Be cool, But my youngest son, 4 years old. It's a nice day yesterday. It's been a good weekend. It was a good weekend. A lot of I spent time with my family and had a good time. As in the era of COVID, you want to appreciate this more often. We took a lot of people took this for granted. I know some degree I took it for granted, but hopefully we can, going forward, really appreciate this time we have. Nothing's guaranteed, So, all right. As I just teased earlier, baseball returned. He's looking behind me. This side here, right? This side? Yeah, the Mets. Baseball returned. The Mets play their first game of the year. I'm excited about baseball this year. I really am excited about baseball this year. It's, as I said, my interest has waned in recent years. And it's not because I don't love baseball, because I do. But I've taken on so much other things in my life that sometimes if you take on more things to watch or more things you want to invest into, something has to give. And baseball has kind of been like the sacrificial lamb to some degree. But I'm kind of excited about this year. My focus this year, of course, being a Mets fan, is the Mets, obviously get back to the playoffs, hopefully go to the World Series. Everybody knows about my lifelong hatred of the Yankees. But this year, there's one team I actually probably hate even more than the Yankees. And I teased this on a couple podcasts I did with a couple of our friends here of the show, Steve Warstein, him being a big Dodgers fan, LA Dodgers fan, and they are the world champions, defending world champions. All my hatred, all my disdain this year is toward the LA Dodgers. People say, well, why the Dodgers? Why do you hate the Dodgers so much? Like, well, obviously I've been a Mets fan for over 30-something years. Those two teams are rivals. I go back to the 88 NLCS, and my hate there. I was only 8 years old at the time, but it was embedded early. Me hating Dodgers was embedded early. That 88 Met team, you can argue, was better than the 86 team that won the World Series. But, it's all fun and games. I say hate them. It's more in the sports. It's within the sports parlance more than anything else. But I'm glad baseball's back. Hoping to go to a couple games this year. I know the Mets coming to town in May. Have a couple of friends who want to go to a couple games, so hopefully we can make that happen. We'll see what happens. Sticking to baseball. Major League Baseball pulling the All-Star game out of Atlanta, Georgia. Now, this comes on the heels of the Georgia governor signing off on the new voters' rights bill. Has been very controversial. Many say that it promotes voter suppression against minorities and all that. You look at some of the optics on it, you can definitely see that. I think the one piece I'm really kind of go back and forth on is this idea of voter ID. Republicans want it required. Democrats don't want it required. That's the running, ad on this. I honestly, on the surface, I'm gonna be honest with you, on the surface, as a common sense human being, you should have ID to vote, obviously, because there are restrictions. Like, you have to be 18 and over, you have to be a U.S. citizen, so there are some restrictions to voting. That makes sense to have ID. The argument being made on the other side, though, however, is that voter ID, somehow promotes suppression and all that. I gotta honestly, I don't want to speak out of turn on this stuff because it's something I'm still learning about. I want to read more on this as to what are the negatives of not having ID, because on the surface it sounds very doable and should be what it is, but why are Republicans pushing hard to suppress voting? That's what I get at. Why are not forget Republicans in government? Why are conservatives in general hell bent on limiting voting? Should you be encouraging voting? I mean, people in general, shouldn't you be encouraging people to vote? That's what I really get at. That really boggles my mind, honestly. But in the case of voter ID, in the case of the ruling on that and then make it a requirement, like I voted in 6 general elections, actually more because I've voted in midterms too. I've always had identification, whether it was my voter ID card or my driver's license. And that's all been okay. That's all been approved. Obviously, I'm a U.S. citizen. I'm born here, so it's not hard for me to, at least it shouldn't be. I've never had problems voting, ever, anywhere I lived. I never ever felt, suppression. That doesn't mean it doesn't exist, though. That doesn't mean it doesn't exist. I just know from my own personal, experiences of voting, I've never had issues with that. I've always been able to get into a voting booth without any problem, get in and get out. Boom. I voted early, voted on the day of. So I've never had issues with voting. So I can't really speak on that of someone who's been impacted by, voter suppression. But it does exist. That's something that's no one can deny. It does exist. And it does boggle my mind that conservatives, Republicans do tend to push back on that. Not instead of, I mean, I always figured the people who are pro voting are the ones who usually win the elections. Why won't Republicans embrace that? That always bothered me. Then you realize haven't won an election in pretty decent fashion in 33 years. When I say the election, I mean like a presidential election. You know what I'm saying? So, I don't know. But I'm going to do more research on the voter ID thing, laws, and pros and cons and all that before I speak out of turn. Okay, what else on the list here? Okay, have you guys been following this Kevin Durant, Michael Rapaport feud that started last week? So I guess Kevin Durant and Michael Rapaport were, I guess there were some DMs exchanges and stuff, and they got into it, and Kevin Durant went off on Michael Rapaport, talking about his wife and using misogynistic language and whatnot, and very offensive language. And Michael Rapaport got pissed off, put the entire DMs, the conversation with KD on Twitter, like put it on social media, and everybody had a field day with it. Now, Kevin Durant got fined by the NBA $50,000 for his language. And my position on this is the fact that I believe both of these guys are wrong. First of all, Kevin Durant, we've known for the last couple of years that he's a phenomenal talent, top 20 player of all time, no doubt about that. A freak of nature when it comes to basketball, but soft as fuck. Completely soft, completely sensitive. And look, this is right. I'm not going to sit and criticize it. It's just right. But we've learned through the years, in recent years with Kevin Durant, that, through the burner accounts and all that and whatnot, that he takes these things very, very seriously, take these things personal, take these things, doesn't let it go on his shoulder. So on one hand with Kevin Durant, what he said is wrong, but to be fair, I'm not to defend him here, but what he was doing and engaging in was a private conversation with one person. He wasn't calling out everybody else on publicly. He was in a conversation with one person. Let's make what he said right, but at the same time, it is a conversation between two men, and that's where Michael Rapaport's comments bother me. Oh, not comments, but his behavior bothered me because while it was wrong what Kevin Durant said to Rapaport. It was very wrong what he said to Rapaport. By the way, when you touch this Mets shirt, let's just stay calm right here. There we go. While, it was wrong. And I know he used the excuse of, and it had this thing called the shame game he does with people go in his DMs and say stupid shit, say stupid defensive things to him and they put it out there. But these are people you don't know. These are people random eggs on Twitter, whatever. You knew, and this is what gets me about Rapaport. He's shocked by the reaction. Why are you shocked? You're talking about Kevin Durant, who's a top 3 player in the NBA when healthy. Okay. That's obviously going to get clicks. You know this. You know what you're doing. I would have rather he taken care of that situation in-house. I'm always one of those guys that says, if you got a situation, you got an issue with someone, deal with it in your own home. We don't even be knowing that shit. Now, granted, it's giving me content to talk about today, but at the same time, it's a bad look on Rapaport's part. It's a bad look. And another thing, too, and I'm a fan of his, by the way, too. I love his podcast. I've been listening to his podcast in a while because he moved to Luminary, and I have not subscribed to Luminary. But at the same time, you're the same guy that talks shit to everybody else, talks shit about everybody else. But when someone calls you back on it, then you're going to back it down now? Now, granted, I get it. Durant saying stuff about his wife, I get it. If someone says something about my wife, I probably get a little pissy, too. Talk about Durant, talk about wanting to spit on him and all that. I see getting mad about that. But, you set the precedent of being someone who's kind of like a bully. That's why I get on people that's how I get on Donald Trump, for example. I have a hard time feeling sorry for Donald Trump because you can't be the bully, and then when people bully you back, you're getting mad about it. Same thing with Rapaport. Rapaport's a bully himself. You bully folks around on social media, on your podcast, all that, and the minute someone claps back on you, you're all of a sudden making a big deal about it. Oh my God, you can't say that about me. And again, I'm not saying what Durant said was okay. No, it's far from it. But again, it's the hypocrisy of it all. And then you put the shit out there. Come on. To me, that was a bad look. I saw him today. He was on Undisputed with Shannon Sharp and Skip Bayless, and Shannon Sharp took him to task. They're basically saying, listen, because they're friends. Rapaport and Shannon Sharp are friends. And Shannon Sharp said it. Listen, boy, but what you did is wrong. If you guys should have squashed that shit, kept that private. Straight up. And I totally agree with Shannon Sharp on that one. That's my position on that, too. So, KD soft. Rapaport was kind of clownish to do what he did. But, those two are... It's crazy. So, Paul Pierce got fired today by ESPN. Now, ESPN says they're parting of ways, but yeah, we know the deal. And the reason why this happened, most likely, it stems from something that happened on his Instagram Live. Apparently, he was on Instagram Live, I think Saturday, with strippers smoking blunts. Now, none of that's illegal. This is a record. It's not illegal at all. It's Paul Pierce's life. He does what he wants. But at the same time, he works at Disney, ESPN. You knew that by doing something like that, you're risking losing your job. And he's gone. Now, y'all know, I don't care for Paul Pierce whatsoever. He's a Hall of Famer, obviously. First ballot, you name it. Great player, obviously, all-time great. One of the greatest Celtics all time. Just couldn't stand him as a player. As an analyst, he was terrible. Made dumb takes. Like, you have hot takes made by other people, and then you have Paul Pierce's takes. But again, he's there for ratings. He's there for ratings, there for clicks, there for there for attention. And it worked. It worked. But 5 from ESPN today for that. And, how about, look, I guess he don't need the money because he's Paul Pierce. He's made a lot of money through his career. Although this dude plays poker like it's going out of style, and he's not really good at it either. So if Paul Pierce is broke in about 5 years, wouldn't surprise me. Wouldn't surprise me at all. Maybe he come back to ESPN by then. I don't know. Anyway, some serious news here. DMX, rapper DMX, who I'm a huge fan of. Was a huge fan of growing up too, especially in the late 90s, early 2000s. He was taken to the hospital on Friday. supposedly overdosed. He was supposedly on life support on Saturday, then was taken off life support because supposedly he was breathing again. Now we're hearing he's back on life support and kind of in a vegetative state as of the last update we've heard. Now DMX has had some drug issues, struggling with addiction issues for many years. This is not nothing new. This has been publicly discussed up and down for God knows what, at least 15, 20 years now. You just got to pray for the guy, obviously. You know, my thoughts and prayers with DMX, his family, obviously. Rooting for the guy. You want to see people make it through this. Now, that being said, I'm also big on personal accountability. He's got to want to change this and fix this. And yes, he's tried. He's been out there trying. He's done rehab. He's done what he could. So I totally praise him for that. But he's, you know, he just hate hearing this, man. He's hearing this. So we're just rooting for DMX to pull through. We love you, man. And hopefully he'll get back to, you know, normal, whatever normal is. You know, it's tough to obviously go through, but keep fighting, DMX. Keep fighting. All right. Some podcast recommendations here. I've been listening to David Sampson's Nothing Personal podcast. David Sampson, you guys may not know, he's the former president of the Miami Marlins. He's also a regular weekly guest. He does weekly segments on the Dan Lebatard show every week. And I just decided to listen to this podcast recently because he does a lot of movie reviews. You know, every episode it's 5 days a week, Monday to Friday, 45 minutes a day. And I just kind of got into it. He's under the CBS Sports umbrella. And I just got into it. And what's cool too, also, I'm trying to find good baseball related content to listen to throughout the year that's not totally like boring. And I think I found it with David Sampson because while he does talk about all the sports and whatnot, his main gig, his main thing is baseball. So, I may have found my home there. So David Sampson, Nothing Personal podcast on CBS Sports Network, podcast network. It's not a video. Although it is a video, it's on YouTube though. It's not on TV. In other words. So, also lately listen to. I just today, actually, this is an hour ago, actually, finished listening to the Grill and JR wrestling podcast. Grill and JR. He just did an episode last week. Talking about Mankind, aka Mick Foley, on his debut run, 1996 run in WWE. Of course, the Mankind character went through a lot of changes, you know, between 96 and 99, 2000. That 96 year was really pretty great. You know, went into details about how the company was resistant to sign him. Vince didn't necessarily care for Cactus Jack, but they signed him, and the guy immediately was propelled to the top of the ladder, was immediately in the title hunt against Shawn Michaels by default. Great feud with Undertaker that year. The ballroom match, you know, at SummerSlam 96. Obviously, the Mind Games match with Shawn Michaels on the month after, September, was one of the most memorable matches one of the most underrated matches in the company's history, in my opinion. So it was a good episode. Here's some insight about Mick Foley, how he was treated. Great, supposedly a great guy, very well liked. Him and Taker were pretty tight and all that. And it was a good episode. Check it out. It's on Grill and JR. They've had some nice episodes in the last couple of weeks. Nice run. Right now, this is the Ron Simmons episode as we speak. So that aired in February, actually. So more wrestling related stuff here too before we get out of here. Yesterday was officially the end of the WWE Network in the United States of America. Now, we know it migrated to Peacock. We know that. But we also know that all 17,000 hours of content that the WWE has will not migrate over to Peacock until August. The rest of it's still going little by little, but which means there's a lot of material I was binging on in recent weeks and months. on the network, sometimes primetime wrestling, such as Sunday's Main Event and all the old stuff that is not currently on Peacock. So I gotta wait till it's migrated. We don't know when's gonna happen. So it's a little depressing. And not only that, the features on the network that were on the network are not there on Peacock. For example, per episode of anything, per show, whatever, there's always a menu, a table of contents you could click over to. You don't have that on Peacock. The streaming is fine on Peacock. I have no problem with streaming, but there's little things, and hopefully they fix that down the road. That's not on the that's always on the network. Is not on Peacock anymore. So, but hopefully in the weeks and months to come, those concerns that us wrestling fans us wrestling fans we're pretty we're sticklers on these kind of things. So hopefully they get it fixed. But it was kind of a sad day because I was watching a couple of things on the network I said recently, and then I can't watch it until it's migrated over to Peacock, which can take up to August. So sad day. So it is WrestleMania week, of course. What we're gonna do on this podcast, if you listen to Take 3 Wrestling Podcast, you know that we're not gonna do any regular shows this week because the guys will be at WrestleMania. Mike and Joe will be at WrestleMania this coming weekend. We preview WrestleMania on Take 3 Wrestling last week. What I'm going to do, I'm going to take that part of the conversation of the podcast, and by the way, that took about an hour on itself, that topic alone. And I'm going to take that conversation and paste it onto this feed by tomorrow. So you'll see the WrestleMania preview. I'm taking it from the Take 3 podcast into here, and it'll be on this feed tomorrow, most likely. So look out for that. So other than that, that's about 30-something minutes of content. I am good there. So again, you can follow me on Twitter at EJChristian7. I guess again, Earnestly Media on all podcast platforms on Spotify. Earnestly Media, not the podcast, but Earnestly Media on YouTube, especially. Check out the YouTube page. Twitter, Instagram, Facebook. Add us, subscribe, engage. I love to talk to you guys. I am trying to build a community here. Not just to be talking to you guys, but I like to build people here. If you want to come on the podcast and talk about things and whatever, feel free to come on the podcast and talk about things. Let me know. Again, EJ7 on Twitter. Earnestly Podcast on all the podcast platforms out there. We will talk soon. God bless you guys and stay up. Love you. Take care. See ya. Bye.